Welcome to Maple Leaf America. This week we're in Seattle, Washington, and at this point I really have nothing else to say. Welcome back to Maple Leaf America. Just off the top of the show, we gave you a little taste of the beauty of Seattle. Right now we are crossing the Puget Sound towards Bremerton. From there we'll head to Gig Harbor, Washington, where we'll meet this week's Leafs old-timer, Brad Smith.
Hi, sweetie.
If there's a more likable NHL alumni than Brad Smith, you'd be hard-pressed to find him. Some say the more a guy fights on the ice, the nicer he is off the ice. Motor City Smitty is no exception.
I wasn't the most graceful player. I mean, I wasn't. It's funny. I scored a lot of goals in every level. Even the American Hockey League. I led the American League in scoring, the Central League in scoring at one time or another. And I got to the National League. I could never score. I think everything was just a second too quick for me. Whether it be getting my shot off or with the skates getting to point A to point B, but. I like to think I brought an asset to the team. I worked hard. I was good defensively. I mean, every time at the last minute of the games, the coaches would put me on the ice, and I get the puck off the boards and down the ice, and wouldn't get scored against, at least not too often. So I like to think I served as a good purpose when I was in Toronto.
Smith brings the same work ethic to his job as a pro scout for the Colorado Avalanche. Having settled down with his growing family in Gig Harbor, Washington, near his wife's hometown, geography forces Smith to be dedicated. Every trip is a long one.
Maybe I'm gone from my home maybe 14, 16 days a month, so about half the month. And then again, the playoffs, that heats up. After the trade deadline from about March 12th to April 1st, I'm at home, and then about April 3rd, 4th, I go on the road and I start following the teams that we might play in the first round of the playoffs, and I'll be on the road until our team loses out, because I'm doing the pre-game preparations for a probable next opponent.
How does a guy from Windsor, Ontario, with the nickname Motor City Smitty, end up working for the rival Avalanche?
and they all call me Motor City there. Just some guys call me Motor or something else, but the name's really stuck to me, and it's actually bigger in Toronto than it was in Detroit.
And despite growing up in Maple Leafs and Red Wings country, those two teams were not his favorites.
I was a Montreal Canadiens fan growing up. John Bella was my favorite player, and Gump Worsley, and Yvonne Cornway, and I can go down the whole list. They were my favorite team. I didn't like Toronto then, and I didn't like Detroit then. But it was when I got the opportunity to go to Toronto and play there. It was sort of like you look back in your childhood, and now you remember watching all the games on Saturday night and Hockey Night in Canada, and you got a chance to play for them. And the Saturday night hockey games were huge games, because they go from coast to coast, and all your friends are in the living room. You're coming in their living room every night at 8 o'clock. So it's pretty kind of neat of a body experience. These guys will be watching me play tonight. So the Saturday night games are really special. Even with the bench, the people would walk behind the bench up to their seats. We had our bench was like one player too short, and one player would come back and sit on the stool, and people be walking right by. I remember one time I was really sweaty and I come off the shift, and I didn't have a towel, and this one lady went by, and her arm just kind of hit me by the face. I just kind of rubbed all my sweat off her shirt, and she loved it. So it was a great building, and I got some fond memories there.
Like a game-winning goal on a breakaway in the playoffs in 1987, his final NHL season.
I go on my backhand, and legs far apart, and then just go to my forehand, and he when I went here, he came out to poke check me. And I just got the puck by him on this side, and threw it. I never forget the puck going in the net. Like, it was wild. I mean, you know, I didn't score a lot, but I'll never forget the puck going in the back of the net. I shot it, and it was almost like I couldn't believe what happened.
Many of Smitty's memories involve fisticuffs.
Playing the Islanders, I swung around center ice, and my stick hit Gillies right here, Clark Gillies right here, and right away there was blood trickling down. I said, oh no. I said, what am I going to do now? This guy, he's mad, and he's on fire, and I'm kind of squaring off with him, and I don't want to get nowhere near him because this guy's going to hurt me. And finally, it was unbelievable. He tripped on a stick. I mean, he tripped on a stick. I jumped up on him. I had him like this now on the ground. He goes, don't touch me. That's it. I said, that's fine with me. And you know, he never bothered me for the next 6 or 7 years, so it was great. So he let me off the hook. But I know if I'd hit him, he'd have come back and clobbered me pretty good somewhere along the line. And I just so happened to see him last year in the Toronto airport. And I didn't want to go up to him and say anything, and he was with, I believe, his daughters, and he came up to me, and we had a nice talk, and I asked him to remember the story, and he sure did, and we had a laugh over it, and now he's going to the Hockey Hall of Fame, so it's great for him.
Maybe Smitty will get inducted someday as a builder. Hey, 2 cups as a scout already. Who knows where traveling Smitty might work himself. Just around the corner and up the street from Brad Smith's house in Gig Harbor, you'll find Tacoma, Washington, the one-time home to the Western Hockey League's Tacoma Rockets. And for the last 5 years, the home to the Tacoma SaberCats of the West Coast Hockey League. But the Cats have gone the way of the dodo. The dome no longer echoes with the sounds of hockey. And next year, the entire West Coast Hockey League will be absorbed by the East Coast Hockey League. Now, there's always changes galore at this level of hockey, but in the next 6 to 12 months, those changes will be unprecedented. Next season, Boise, Idaho, and San Diego, California will have representatives in the East Coast Hockey League. What's in a name?
We're examining the possibility of a name change now. I think it's a foregone conclusion that there will be a change.
Surely they'll come up with something creative. In the meantime, teams in the current West Coast League, with a slightly different salary cap and veteran rule, will have to make adjustments.
We have to get younger. We have to look for affiliations. We have to have opportunities for players to be called up. But at the same time, we have more to offer now. We can go after players and agents and be able to sell our program as part of the East Coast Hockey League with the type of success they've had. The caliber of play that they play is going to help us in recruiting those types of players.
The West teams will subsidize travel for the East teams. Normally an all-bus league, the ECHL will get help when flying west. However, the impact should be minimal. The current WCHL will probably be a division all to itself, with at least 80% of the games taking place inside the division.
I think the big thing is credibility. You know, having a lot of teams in an established league. I think we've been a pretty good league, but you know, with only 6 teams now, it's frustrating. Biggest thing to me is going in established leagues. So if you win that, you know, from a competitive level, you win a championship in 36-team league, and that's a lot of fun.
Fun will be the playoff format. Fun will be watching the standings and later realizing Anchorage could play Greenville for the ECHL championship. The new ECHL, with expansion franchises being added as well, will carry anywhere from 33 to 38 teams next year.
You now have a national league, a national brand, and I think from the spectator's point of view, it will lead to more variety. And certainly I think from our perspective, even though you want your closest rivals to be in your building, 6-7 times a year, hopefully, they do not want to see them a dozen times. So I think it's helpful if there are some new teams visiting. So I think from that point of view, it provides a little variety, and also I think allows the fans to know that this is the best AA league, and these are the best young players coming into the pro game, and we have them in our league.
The only remaining competition next year in AA pro hockey will be the United League in the Midwest and the Central League, which will stretch from Indianapolis to Albuquerque.
It's really no different than what we've gone through over the course of the last number of years. You're continually in competition, you know, whether it be for affiliations, whether it be for the recruitment of players, in a lot of cases for markets themselves. So it doesn't necessarily change that competitive nature that you're already undergoing.
There are presently no plans for a UHL-CHL merger, but who knows? Check back a year from now. For now, the ECHL, the world's largest developmental league, simply gets larger. We'll see if bigger is better. Well, although the WCHL is going away as we know it, hockey in the Pacific Northwest is actually growing, as indicated by our little orange friend here. This rink project is just one of many new exciting developments around here. We'll tell you all about that. We'll have our travel log segment. It's all ahead on Maple Leaf America.
Hi, I'm Bonnie Way. I live in Boise, Idaho, but I'm from Toronto, Ontario. My favorite Toronto Maple Leaf is number 27, Daryl Sittler, or was. And I'd like to say hi to my father, Lloyd Way, who lives in Barrie, Ontario, and all of my former coworkers at the Toronto Blue Jays. Hi, guys.
Seattle has a lot going on. It is obviously a very beautiful city. It's very active. You have the ocean and the streams and the mountains, but there's much more than meets the eye. All these folks are waiting to go into the city beneath the city. That's right, the old town from 100 years ago sits underneath the new town. It's weird.
All right, so
Let us in, let us in.
that's the key. It's bent a little bit, so I hope it works later. Yeah, on the way out we might get in trouble. Okay, no, it'll be fine, really. Hang on, let's just... Haha. Down we go.
It's really worth it if you can get in.
They don't know what they're going to see. That's the joy of being a tour guide. I play tour guide too. Because people come here expecting maybe something like a Disneyland experience where we recreated these old storefronts, and we didn't.
This is the haunted area of the underground. You can feel typically about a 4-degree difference in here from any other place in the underground. They say it's haunted. We have a former tour guide who used to see a lot of stuff in here, so she didn't give tours anymore. This is an old teller's cage here. I always tell the children that it's like an ATM machine with a guy locked in it because they aren't familiar with the concept. The teller's cage. This is the corner of First Avenue and Yesler Way. Standing in the doorway here of what used to be the Scandinavian American Bank. The owner was Scottish.
Nice.
Yeah, Angus McIntosh.
Good for him.
Yeah, it's a good name, good name. We had a fire here in 1889. We call it the Great Fire because it got rid of everything that had been done poorly before. And it really gave us a chance to start over and fix the problems. And the idea had been to move the earth from the cliffs. There were cliffs surrounding this low tide flat area. They wanted to sluice the water, or the earth into the tide flat area. But, you know, when it rains from like September to late August, it can be a little hard to get that stuff to dry out. So property owners essentially started reconstructing their buildings before there was ever a chance to do any of that. So the city's forced to work around them. They decide to elevate the streets around the buildings in lieu of elevating the whole town. This is kind of neat too. I like this. This is how we stabilize the underground.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I feel safe.
Yeah. Notice the tethers so they don't fall down again.
Yeah, that's good.
All of the underground is going to be used primarily because of the start of the Yukon Gold Rush, and this is where Seattle history and Canadian history kind of come together. That gold rush starts in 1897 for us. A ship came out of the Yukon, had about 2 tons of gold on board it. The newspapers say it's a ton of gold, but you know, the country's in a depression. So people start streaming to Seattle, and we tell them we're the gateway to the Yukon. We just don't tell them that the Yukon's 2,000 miles from here, because that'd ruin our game. And then the Canadians pass a law. They say if you're coming up here, you're crossing our border, you know, you better be ready. They didn't want a bunch of ill-prepared, deceased Americans littering up. You know, it's a pretty countryside, so come ready or don't come at all. Well, everybody bought their supplies here, so we went from about $20,000 in commercial sales the year before the gold rush started to $25 million. And this is kind of the heart of what well, what we call the garment district. In actuality, it was more of an undergarment district. In 1884, the city's trying to get a tax base, so they sent out a survey. They only listed 2 questions on it: where do you live, what do you do? We had about 50% of the respondents say they were in the logging industry. You know, we're a logging town, that made sense, but a little over 10% of our population claimed they were seamstresses. So we're looking at 2,700 women sewing dresses for loggers. You know, seemed like a lot. And all but 6 of them had given addresses within the same 3-block area in the saloon district. So they essentially decide to let them stay and to keep calling them what they had claimed they were, seamstresses. Yeah, there weren't any laws against sewing.
Right.
So they started Seamstress Union. They throw it on the tax books. They combine that with our alcohol tax, and those girls covered 87% of the town's operating budget for the next 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd like to say they put us on our feet, but it's the opposite, really.
Nothing like a good seamstress. Now that's Seattle above ground, not nearly as tall as the CN Tower. We'll be back with more in just a couple of minutes, right after our funny hockey fan photo. Yes, it's time for another funny hockey fan photo this week from an unknown rink. A lot of strange, very bizarre, very hungry people apparently. We'll get to that in a moment. First of all, the guy taking a photograph had to tell his friends that he was at the game. Couldn't clip a picture of Gretzky out of a magazine. Had to take a picture of him from behind through the glass. You know, whatever, at least he was there, but this is what the photo turned out to be like. Something like about like that. Of course, it says Gretzky instead of Simpson. But anyway, that's what that guy was up to. Not sure what they're serving at the concession stands at this rink, but these folks sure are hungry. This guy just finished picking his nose. This lady is actively picking her nose, and this guy up here, he's got his finger in his mouth. Not even going to go there. I just hope it's not sequential. Now, down below, behind Gretzky, we have the Cro-Magnon brothers. This is Cro-Magnon Man, his brother Oomph, and Gungala. Right there, they put the 3 of them right along the glass so they'd have the best possible view. Careful, don't pick your nose at the hockey rink. You might end up right here on this program. It's amazing how people are always picking their nose in these pictures. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back to Maple Leaf America. This is where the Seattle Thunderbirds used to play hockey, at the Mercer Arena. And this is where the Seattle T-Birds play now, the Key Arena. This rink is really small and intimate, noisy, great old barn. This arena is big, built for basketball, not so good for hockey. The Mercer is practically condemned. All they have in here now is the opera. They really need to do some work. They probably won't get many changes done here. This was built for the Seattle Supersonics of the NBA, and if the T-Birds can get back in here, they would. It's just a matter of how much work, how much time, how much nonsense and politics. Just one of the many issues confronting the T-Birds in the Western Hockey League. This veteran Seattle T-Birds club has a sizable lead in the U.S. division of the Western Hockey League. But in this market, first place doesn't necessarily mean people are paying attention.
We're a minor league team in a major league market, and that stuff, certainly the level of ownership in Seattle has changed tremendously with the different teams. Paul Allen buying the football and the baseball team getting a new building. It's changed dramatically over the years, but it's still, if we can get word out, if we can get, the last few years when the economy was bubbling, it was really hard to get word out and advertise, that kind of thing. Now I think we're going to have a little better chance and maybe can raise our awareness and our exposure a bit in the market. And the biggest thing is just letting people know we're playing and we're involved. We have a very loyal core of fans, but we need to increase our overall attendance a little bit.
Farwell was Seattle's GM when he decided to add owner to his title last summer. The former Philadelphia Flyers exec and Memorial Cup winning GM in Medicine Hat, Farwell purchased the team in an attempt to ensure its future. The Thunderbirds' previous owner decided to head north to suburban Everett, a sleepy minor league sports-crazed community building a new rink. The Everett Silvertips begin play in the WHL next season.
The ownership is Mr. Bill Ewell out of Medicine Hat. He owned the Seattle Thunderbirds for, I think, around 12 years. Decided to sell that and apply for the expansion club here in Everett. Bill has also owned numerous minor league baseball teams in Canada, and he's seen this marketplace as a great opportunity. And the Western Hockey League also looked at it as a great opportunity to have 5 teams in the United States now, a full division, and all of them doing very well.
Everett is quickly becoming hockey savvy. A local radio station carries Vancouver Canucks games. Fans and local officials are jumping on board. The success of the Tips should bring fresh exposure to the T-Birds.
We tried it once before in this area with 2 teams, and actually had the rink been a little better in Tacoma, I think it would have been real good. The rivalry was tremendous between the two, and with the new rink going in Everett, we're going to bring us to 5 teams in this division. There'll be 5 American teams, and I think rivalry-wise, it'll be real good.
Meanwhile, the typical challenges of presenting hardcore major junior hockey in a big American non-hockey city continue.
It's completely different than being in a center where I played, like a Medicine Hat or a Moose Jaw or even Cranbrook, BC. You're in a major league market. And you're really a minor league hockey team. So there's a lot of things we deal with that, say, the smaller markets wouldn't deal with, from off-ice stuff to the kids being spread out. We have some kids that are 30, 40 minutes apart from one another. And then the distractions of being in a big city, and the major league sports to the size of the schools. All those things make it a tough place to operate in junior hockey, but also it's a real good challenge.
Unfortunately, one of the good things this franchise misses is that noisy old hockey rink.
When you walked out of the dressing room, you had to walk between the fans to get to the ice, and they're taunting you and throwing stuff at you, and it's just, when you're 16, 17 years old, that's pretty intimidating. It seated probably 5,500, and it was always full. It was always really loud and noisy, and it's just one of those rinks that you knew that you were going into. If you weren't awake by the time you got there, you were rudely awakened when the game was on.
The 2003 T-Birds are working hard to win the WHL, and they might just do it. Question is, given the current setup, will they get most everyone to notice?
Oh, it's a beautiful day up here on Mount Rainier. The sun's been shining all day, the moon's coming out. You might be able to see me, I'm waving. I'm right there at the left edge of the glacier, kind of where the snow meets the shadow. Yep. Second biggest mountain in the lower 48 contiguous, behind Mount Whitney in California. It's really beautiful up here.
New Jersey next week. See you there.